Have you ever wondered why certain opportunities never reach you, or why the very people assigned by God to lift you seem distant or invisible? Sometimes it is not that God has not sent destiny helpers. The problem is that unseen barriers are blocking them from finding you. Destiny helpers are instruments in God's hand, but pride, disobedience, and spiritual blindfolds can shut the door to their arrival. In this teaching, I will expose 5 things that block destiny helpers from locating you and reveal how to align your life so that God's appointed help will manifest at the right time. Number 1. Pride and self-sufficiency. One of the greatest barriers that can block destiny helpers from reaching you is pride combined with self-sufficiency. Pride is subtle, deceptive, and often cloaked in self-confidence. It convinces a person that they do not need the help of others, and in turn, it shuts the very doors God intends to use for their promotion. The Bible is clear in Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Pride positions a person for downfall because it resists the humility that attracts God's grace and the assistance of men. Pride often shows up in the belief that everything must be achieved alone. A proud heart refuses to acknowledge weakness or admit the need for help. Yet, God designed humanity to live in interdependence. Even Jesus, the Son of God, surrounded himself with disciples and relied on others during his earthly ministry. In Luke 8:3, Scripture records that certain women provided for him out of their resources. If Christ himself embraced help, then no believer should consider themselves above receiving assistance. Pride closes the heart, while humility opens it to God's provision through others. Self-sufficiency often masquerades as strength, but in reality, it can be a spiritual blockade. Jeremiah 17:5 warns, "Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord." When a person depends solely on their own wisdom, strategies, or connections, they unknowingly push God and his appointed helpers aside. This creates an atmosphere where destiny helpers cannot function, because God resists human pride, but supplies grace where dependence on him is evident. A proud person will often miss their helpers because they refuse to recognize them. Helpers rarely appear in the form we expect. Naaman, the Syrian commander, almost missed his healing because of pride. When the prophet Elisha sent a servant to tell him to wash in the Jordan River, Naaman was offended and considered the instruction beneath him. 2 Kings 5:11 records his reaction. But Naaman became furious and went away and said, "Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy." Pride nearly cost him his destiny moment, but when he humbled himself and obeyed, his healing came. God uses destiny helpers who may be less educated, less wealthy, or even less experienced than we are, but pride will blind our eyes to their value. The Pharisees rejected Jesus as the Messiah because he did not come in the grandeur they expected. Pride blinded them to the help God had sent for their salvation. To break free from pride and self-sufficiency, one must embrace humility before God and man. James 4:6 reminds us, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Grace makes way for destiny helpers to find you. When humility governs your heart, you become approachable, teachable, and positioned for divine connection. Humility does not mean weakness. It means acknowledging your dependence on God and his chosen vessels. Destiny helpers are drawn to humility because it reflects the character of Christ. Philippians 2:8 describes how Jesus humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, and for this reason, God highly exalted him. In the same way, when you clothe yourself with humility, you will not block the channels of destiny God has prepared for you. Pride isolates, but humility attracts. Self-sufficiency limits, but reliance on God unlocks divine assistance. The humble are never abandoned, for God himself ensures that help comes at the appointed time. Number 2, unforgiveness and bitterness. Another major hindrance that blocks destiny helpers from locating a person is unforgiveness and bitterness. These two conditions of the heart create a spiritual barrier that not only affects relationships with others, but also interferes with God's plan to connect you with the people He has ordained to bless your life. Jesus made it clear in Mark 11:25, "And whenever you stand praying, if you have anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may also forgive you your trespasses." Unforgiveness shuts the heavens and leaves a person vulnerable, cutting them off from the flow of grace that attracts helpers. Unforgiveness is more than refusing to let go of an offense. It is holding on to pain, replaying it in the heart, and allowing it to shape perception and choices. When bitterness takes root, it poisons how one views others, including those whom God may send as helpers. Hebrews 12:15 warns, "Looking carefully, lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by this many become defiled." Bitterness defiles not only the individual who harbors it, but also relationships and opportunities around them. Destiny helpers are often people, and if your heart is clouded with resentment, you may not be able to recognize or receive them. Consider Joseph's story in Genesis. His brothers betrayed him, sold him into slavery, and caused him years of hardship. Yet when God elevated Joseph to a position of power in Egypt, those same brothers came to him in need. If Joseph had allowed unforgiveness and bitterness to dominate his heart, he might have rejected them and, in turn, blocked the unfolding of God's greater plan for reconciliation and preservation. Instead, he chose forgiveness, declaring in Genesis 50:20, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Forgiveness aligned Joseph with destiny and allowed him to fulfill his divine assignment. Unforgiveness not only blocks helpers, but can also cause helpers to turn away. People are drawn to peace, kindness, and humility, but bitterness repels. A bitter person becomes harsh, critical, and difficult to approach, even when others mean well. Destiny helpers, sensing hostility or unresolved wounds, may withdraw, leaving the person isolated. This is why Proverbs 18:19 says, "A brother offended is harder to win than a strong city, and contentions are like the bars of a castle." When a heart remains locked in offense, it builds a prison that even God-sent helpers cannot penetrate. Jesus himself modeled forgiveness as the pathway to destiny. On the cross, he prayed in Luke 23:34, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." Even in the midst of betrayal and pain, forgiveness opened the way for his mission to be completed. If Christ had allowed bitterness to take root, the redemption of humanity would have been compromised. In the same way, believers who desire to walk in destiny must release offense quickly and refuse to let bitterness rule. When you forgive, you release yourself from chains and make room for divine connections. Destiny helpers are drawn to a heart at peace, free of grudges, and filled with love. Forgiveness does not excuse the wrong done, but it places justice in God's hands and opens your life to His blessings. To walk in your destiny, you must let go of bitterness and choose forgiveness, for only then will the helpers God has appointed for you find a welcoming place in your life. Number 3, disobedience to God's instructions. Disobedience to God's instructions is one of the most dangerous barriers that prevents destiny helpers from finding and assisting you. When God gives an instruction, it is not random or insignificant. His commands are pathways designed to align you with the right people, opportunities, and timing. Ignoring or neglecting these instructions creates misalignment, and when you are out of position, the helpers that were assigned to meet you cannot reach you. Destiny helpers are often positioned at the place of obedience, and if you miss that place, you also miss the people God has ordained to lift you. Many times, God's instructions do not make sense to human reasoning. They may come as small steps that appear insignificant, such as making a phone call, sowing a seed, moving to a new location, or offering kindness to someone who has wronged you. Yet in those very instructions, God has hidden the key to your next level. Disobedience closes doors, delays progress, and causes divine helpers to bypass you. A person can pray and fast for breakthroughs, but if they continually resist God's voice, they are essentially shutting the very door through which their help would arrive. Disobedience also reveals a lack of trust. When you do not obey God, you are indirectly saying that His way is not the best way. This posture blocks the flow of grace and makes it difficult for destiny helpers to function in your life. Helpers are drawn to obedience because obedience attracts favor, and favor is the atmosphere where divine connections flourish. When you obey God, even when it is uncomfortable, you position yourself for favor, and that favor causes people to notice and assist you. Destiny helpers are sent at specific times, and timing is everything. When you delay obedience, you risk missing the appointed moment when your helper was scheduled to arrive. Opportunities can be lost forever because of delayed or partial obedience. Sometimes the cost of disobedience is not immediate, but it shows up in the form of missed seasons, unexplained struggles, and prolonged waiting. Helpers who were meant to propel you forward may walk past because you were not where God instructed you to be. Another subtle danger of disobedience is that it attracts wrong associations. When you are out of alignment with God's will, you may find yourself surrounded by people who were never assigned to your destiny. These wrong connections drain energy, resources, and focus. Meanwhile, the genuine helpers God intended for you are unable to connect because you are not walking in the path He designed. Obedience serves as a filter, keeping away distractions and ensuring that the right voices and hands reach you at the right time. To remain open to destiny helpers, it is essential to cultivate a lifestyle of prompt and total obedience. Even the smallest instructions carry great weight in the spiritual realm. What may appear trivial could be the very act that unlocks the presence of your next helper. Disobedience shuts doors, but obedience opens them wide. By aligning with God's instructions daily, you make it easy for destiny helpers to locate you, recognize you, and fulfill their divine assignment in your life. Number 4, wrong associations and relationships. Destiny is not pursued in isolation. Every person's journey is influenced, shaped, and at times redirected by the people they allow into their lives. Relationships have the power to accelerate progress, delay growth, or completely derail the path God intended. Wrong associations and relationships are among the most dangerous hindrances that keep destiny helpers from finding or assisting you. While God positions certain individuals to lift you, guide you, or connect you to opportunities, the enemy also sends people who are strategically placed to mislead, distract, or block the flow of divine help. When someone surrounds themselves with people who carry negative influences, they begin to absorb the atmosphere those people bring. Relationships are never neutral. Every connection carries a spirit, a mindset, and an influence. Associating with people who are bitter, faithless, immoral, or careless with their words can create a spiritual climate that repels the very helpers God has assigned. Destiny helpers are drawn to environments that reflect obedience, humility, and purpose. When those qualities are overshadowed by the wrong company, helpers often retreat because the environment no longer aligns with the assignment they were sent to fulfill. Wrong associations also cloud discernment. Helpers may arrive in your life, but if you are surrounded by the wrong people, you may not recognize them. Toxic relationships can plant seeds of suspicion, jealousy, or fear that distort your perception. A person who is meant to bless you may be rejected because of the influence of someone whispering negativity into your ear. Many miss divine connections, not because the helpers never came, but because their discernment was compromised by the voices of those around them. Another danger of wrong relationships is that they drain emotional and spiritual strength. Destiny requires focus, energy, and clarity. However, wrong associations often bring constant drama, conflict, and distraction. Instead of moving forward, you find yourself tied up in cycles of offense, misunderstanding, or unnecessary battles. These distractions consume the time and strength needed to recognize and work with destiny helpers. Helpers are attracted to purpose, But when your energy is wasted in draining relationships, the progress they were meant to accelerate is slowed or even completely halted. The wrong people also create invisible barriers to destiny helpers. Sometimes, helpers hesitate to step into your life because they discern the presence of unhealthy connections. Helpers are often wise and spiritually sensitive, and they will not sow into a life where their input will be wasted or where wrong associations will choke their influence. Imagine a person carrying resources to assist you, but holding back because they see your inner circle filled with people who mock, criticize, or exploit. Helpers prefer to invest where there is maturity, readiness, and purity of relationships. Moreover, wrong associations influence decision-making. The voices closest to you shape the choices you make. If those voices are not aligned with God's purpose, they can guide you into decisions that pull you further from the place where helpers are assigned to meet you. Some helpers are positioned at specific doors, but wrong counsel can cause you to walk past those doors entirely. The tragedy is that helpers may be near, but bad decisions rooted in bad company cause you to miss them. Another reality is that wrong relationships can block your testimony. Helpers are often sent to people whose lives bear the fruit of integrity, honor, and character. Wrong associations can tarnish your reputation and credibility. A person assigned to help you may step back because your relationships cast doubt on your values. Even when your heart is pure, the company you keep can speak louder than your intentions, and destiny helpers may withhold their assistance until they are assured that you have separated from destructive ties. The path of destiny demands careful evaluation of the people you walk with. Every relationship either pulls you toward your assignment or away from it. Wrong associations are not always obvious because some appear kind or supportive, but carry hidden agendas that only reveal themselves over time. This is why wisdom and discernment are essential. You cannot afford to attach yourself to people who drain your focus, compromise your values, or distract you from your God-given assignment. To remain open to destiny helpers, you must be intentional about your relationships. The right people sharpen your vision, encourage your faith, and align with your purpose. The wrong people blur your vision, weaken your resolve, and delay your journey. The presence of the wrong company often signals to destiny helpers that the soil of your life is not ready for their investment. Separation from wrong associations clears the atmosphere and creates space for helpers to step in. Ultimately, relationships are gateways. The people you walk with will either open or close the doors that lead to your next level. Wrong associations shut doors, scatter opportunities, and repel destiny helpers. The right associations, built on truth, integrity, and purpose, attract the very help you need at the right time. If destiny helpers seem absent, it is worth examining the relationships in your life. Removing the wrong company can be painful, but it creates the clarity and purity that draws the right helpers into your path. In destiny, relationships are never casual. They are either the bridges or the barriers to your God-appointed future. Number 5. Lack of discernment and prayerlessness. One of the most critical reasons why destiny helpers fail to locate or assist a person is the absence of discernment coupled with prayerlessness. Discernment is the spiritual ability to recognize and judge things accurately, to perceive beyond the surface, and understand what is truly happening in the unseen realm. Prayer is the lifeline that connects a believer to divine instruction, clarity, and strength. Without these two vital elements, an individual is left vulnerable to deception, confusion, and missed opportunities. Destiny helpers are often sent in subtle and unexpected ways, and without discernment and prayer, one may overlook them or misinterpret their presence. Lack of discernment blinds the eyes to divine opportunities. Many times, destiny helpers do not arrive in glamorous packages. They may come in the form of someone who appears ordinary, someone you least expect, or even someone who initially inconveniences you. Without discernment, it is easy to dismiss or undervalue them. People often pray for breakthroughs and for divine connections, but when those connections show up in unassuming forms, they fail to recognize them. Discernment sharpens perception so that you can see beyond appearances and identify the hidden hand of God working through people and circumstances. When discernment is lacking, individuals are also more likely to fall into the traps of wrong helpers. Not every person who shows up in your life with resources, advice, or support is truly sent to aid your destiny. Some are distractions, some are counterfeits, and some are even assignments from the enemy meant to derail your progress. Without discernment, it becomes easy to welcome people who drain instead of build, deceive instead of guide, and delay instead of accelerate. Prayer cultivates discernment because it keeps the heart aligned with God's will and sharpens spiritual senses. Prayerlessness is another major hindrance that keeps destiny helpers at a distance. Prayer creates an atmosphere where divine connections are nurtured. It is through prayer that one receives instructions, directions, and the grace to walk in alignment with destiny. When prayer is absent, the believer's sensitivity to divine timing is dulled. Helpers may be sent, but without prayer, the individual may be asleep spiritually, missing the moment of visitation. Prayer is the discipline that keeps the heart awake, vigilant, and prepared for divine encounters. Prayerlessness also leaves a person spiritually weak and exposed. Destiny helpers are not merely physical supporters. They are spiritual appointments orchestrated by God. Engaging with them requires strength, faith, and clarity that comes only through consistent communion with God. When prayer is neglected, the believer becomes distracted by fleshly desires and worldly pursuits, and in such a state, destiny helpers cannot fulfill their assignments effectively. Helpers are attracted to spiritual readiness, but prayerlessness signals unreadiness and immaturity. Another effect of prayerlessness is that it opens the door to fear and doubt. Without prayer, faith weakens, and a fearful heart often rejects the very help it needs. A person may be suspicious of genuine helpers, turning them away out of insecurity or mistrust. Prayer builds confidence in God's guidance and enables one to embrace help with boldness, knowing that God is orchestrating the connection. Where there is prayer, there is peace. Where there is no prayer, suspicion and confusion thrive. Discernment and prayer work hand in hand. Discernment allows you to recognize destiny helpers, and prayer gives you the wisdom and strength to walk with them effectively. Without prayer, discernment grows dim. Without discernment, prayer lacks focus. Together, they create a shield that protects, guides, and ensures that divine connections are not wasted. Many people miss their helpers, not because the helpers never came, but because they lacked the discernment to see them and the prayer life to sustain them. A life of discernment requires more than just natural observation. It demands a heart trained to hear, see, and sense what God is doing. A prayerless heart cannot cultivate such sensitivity. Instead, it becomes dull, distracted, and easily misled. The tragedy of prayerlessness is that it not only blocks helpers, but it can also pushes away those who are already present. Without discernment, their value is not recognized. Without prayer, the strength to nurture the relationship is not present. To walk in destiny, discernment, and prayer must be non-negotiable. They are the spiritual compasses that guide you to the right people and help you protect those relationships when they come. Discernment opens your eyes, prayer strengthens your spirit, and together, they ensure that destiny helpers are not only recognized, but also embraced. When these two are missing, opportunities are wasted, helpers are rejected, and progress is delayed. If you desire destiny, helpers to find you and stand with you, then cultivate discernment and never neglect prayer. A discerning spirit sees what others cannot see, and a prayerful heart walks in divine alignment. Without these, destiny helpers remain distant, but with them, every helper assigned to your life will not only find you, but also fulfill the purpose for which they were sent. Destiny helpers are a gift from God, and while prayer and faith are important to draw them into your life, there is another powerful key that determines whether they will come and whether they will remain. That key is godly living. Living a life that reflects the character and nature of God creates an atmosphere that draws helpers to you and makes it easy for them to stay connected. Godly living is not simply about outward religious practice. It is the daily expression of integrity, humility, love, and obedience that points others toward God. When these qualities are present, destiny helpers recognize your life as good soil in which to invest their time, resources, and support. Attracting destiny helpers begins with character. People are drawn to those they can trust. When your words and actions align, when you live with honesty and integrity, you create a reputation that opens doors. Destiny helpers are often looking for reliability because they do not want their assistance to be wasted. When you consistently demonstrate dependability, you become a magnet for people who are willing to pour into your life. Conversely, when a life is marked by dishonesty or inconsistency, helpers will often hesitate to commit themselves, sensing that their help may be misused or taken for granted. Another key aspect of godly living that attracts destiny helpers is humility. Helpers are not attracted to arrogance or entitlement. They are drawn to those who acknowledge the value of others and who recognize that help is not a right, but a gift. Humility makes you approachable and creates space for others to contribute without feeling diminished. When you live humbly, helpers find joy in standing with you because they know their presence is valued and their input is respected. Pride pushes people away, but humility draws them in. Maintaining destiny helpers requires a life of gratitude. Helpers who feel appreciated are more likely to continue offering their support. Gratitude should be expressed both in words and in actions. A simple thank you can strengthen a relationship, but gratitude shown through faithfulness, kindness, and reciprocity cements it even more deeply. Godly living is marked by thanksgiving in all things, and when destiny helpers sense genuine appreciation, they are encouraged to stay and continue in their assignment. Love is also central to attracting and maintaining destiny helpers. Love in godly living is not merely emotion, but action. It is demonstrated through patience, compassion, and generosity. Helpers are drawn to those who show love to others without favoritism. A life that radiates love creates a welcoming atmosphere where people feel safe and valued. This draws the right helpers and keeps them connected because they know they are not being used but genuinely embraced. Obedience to divine instructions is another way godly living keeps destiny helpers in place. Helpers are often sent in response to specific alignments in your life. When you obey God's voice, you remain in the pathway where helpers are assigned to meet you. Disobedience, however, disrupts the flow and can cause helpers to drift away. Godly living means continually walking in obedience, even when it is inconvenient, because obedience signals readiness for the connections and responsibilities God desires to release. Forgiveness is equally important. A life filled with grudges and bitterness creates an environment where helpers struggle to thrive. Godly living requires releasing offenses quickly and refusing to allow resentment to take root. Helpers often carry sensitivity to spiritual atmospheres, and when they sense hostility or unresolved anger, they may retreat. But when your life radiates forgiveness and peace, you create a space where helpers can flourish alongside you. Consistency in godly living is what maintains long-term relationships with destiny helpers. A moment of kindness or humility may draw them in initially, but it is consistency that keeps them connected. Helpers need to see that your character is not situational, but stable. A life that consistently reflects the values of integrity, humility, gratitude, love, and obedience becomes a safe and fruitful environment for destiny helpers to remain committed. Godly living also ensures that you attract the right kind of helpers. Not every helper is assigned by God, and without discernment, wrong helpers can enter your life. But when you live in a way that honors God, your lifestyle becomes a filter that repels the wrong people and draws the right ones. Those who are sent by God will resonate with the purity and authenticity of your life, while those with ulterior motives will be uncomfortable and withdraw. Ultimately, Godly living is not about impressing people, but about aligning your life with God's will. When you do so, you create a spiritual fragrance that naturally attracts those appointed to help you. Maintaining those helpers is not about manipulation, but about continuing to live in the character of Christ daily. Helpers stay where they see integrity, humility, love, and gratitude. They remain where they sense obedience and consistency. They invest where they know their efforts will be honored and multiplied. To attract and maintain destiny helpers, make godly living your foundation. It is not a single act, but a lifestyle. It speaks louder than words and creates an atmosphere where divine connections flourish. When you live in a way that pleases God, the right people will always find you. And when they do, they will remain, because your life reflects the very character of the one who sent them. Destiny helpers are vital to the fulfillment of every divine assignment, but their presence and effectiveness often depend on the state of our lives. Pride, unforgiveness, disobedience, wrong associations, and lack of discernment can create invisible walls that prevent them from reaching us. Yet, when we cultivate godly living through humility, gratitude, love, and obedience, we create an atmosphere that attracts them and keeps them in our lives. Destiny helpers are not drawn to manipulation or pretense, but to authenticity and consistency. As you align yourself with God's will, your life becomes a beacon that draws the right people at the right time. Do not allow character flaws or spiritual negligence to delay your destiny. Instead, walk in the light of God's truth, maintain a heart of prayer, and live uprightly, and you will see every helper assigned to you manifest in your journey of purpose.